For people who are watching this and don't know your first husband, Mr. Vanderlip, was he very involved in show business?
No, but he was so charming and so funny, so handsome, so good, so gifted, that we were sort of a show couple. I mean, the two of the wealthiest lawyers in Los Angeles fought over who would take us to the opera or who would take us, you know.
Is that right?
Yeah.
How did you meet Mr. Vanderlip?
Kelvin was very unhappy. He'd married a woman whose mother had found the socialists of New York and pushed her at Kelvin, who was shy and married at 25. And she was a gold digger and a social climber. And lately I've met her in Chicago and in Paris, and she was not attractive, and she was after his money. In fact, he gave her half of everything he had, half of everything he'd ever get, so that she wouldn't love him for the money.
When you first met Mr. Vanderlip, what were your first reactions? Do you remember?
Oh,
I mean, did you instantly like him?
He was a prince. I mean, he was tall, he was handsome, he was funny, he was sportive, he was rich. It was love at first sight.
And
I was married 2 months after, in Washington, after I met him. He wouldn't let go, and we lived next door for 5 years, and he had an apartment on Palm Drive in Beverly Hills. He was wonderful.
People in Palos Verdes know the Vanderlip mansion. Did he build this?
Kelvin did not. His father built this house in 1921 with a small kitchen. I've enlarged it twice. You see, the story of Mr. Vanderlip Sr. is fabulous. At 16, he had lost his pony, lost his farm, lost his father, and he had a mother, a sister, this one, and 2 maiden aunts to support. And he was in overalls in Aurora, Illinois, and he taught himself shorthand, scratching on his machine. And then eventually he began to write finance for the Aurora paper, then the Chicago Tribune. Then Lyman Gage asked him to become Undersecretary of the Treasury. And from then on, he was asked by Stillman to head the Citibank. And as a journalist, he publicized his banking, whereas before banks were like this, you know. And so he became a multimillionaire with a huge mansion on the Hudson. And he bought this sight unseen with 5 other properties, Cruz Bay, Oregon, and 2 in Texas. I think he bought the whole ranch for $1.5 million, the whole thing.
Do you remember what year that was?
1912.
So in 1912, $1 million was a lot of money.
Yeah, well, the people were buying land around here for 23 cents an acre.
This was sort of like Hearst's Castle, except it was down in Los Angeles.
Yeah, and it's much smaller. I think Hearst Castle is a wonderful site, but it's the ugliest piece of castle I've ever seen, except for the swimming pool.
I must just ask you one final question, talking about what you just said. In thinking about your wonderful years of living on this earth, people who are watching are going to say, my goodness, what sort of things does she eat? Do you eat a very healthy sort of lifestyle?
No, and my housekeeper of 40 years, Lulu, who you met, she has now married and has a grown daughter, and she leaves at 3 o'clock. And they leave me a tray with a glass of milk and an ice bucket and some cheese and fruit.
Well, I would just like to say that I am absolutely amazed and thrilled at how alert you are, how interesting you are, and it's been a real pleasure to talk to you.
Well, I want to thank you because you ask such marvelous questions and you're very flattering.
So did you get the answer to this question here? The answer is that it happens to be in France and it happens to be in Normandy. The particular problem was that these hedges here, right here, were full of brambles and weeds and branches, and it presented an immense problem because the Allies couldn't get through there. The other thing is, from the Germans' point of view, it presented a wonderful opportunity for them to get hidden positions behind these hedges and behind these fences so that they had a really good position to slaughter the Allies. How did the Allies get rid of this problem? Well, it led to the ingenuity of an American sergeant, Sergeant Cooling. Sergeant Cooling came up with the idea of a giant sort of pair of scissor-like things that they welded onto the front of Sherman tanks, and then the Sherman tanks simply went up into the hedges and simply cut a big swath through the fences. It was a very clever idea, and it helped the Allies solve what proved to be a very initially intractable problem. Look for our segment, Do You Know Where This Is?, on our next show. I'm John Clayton. I hope you enjoy this. Of all the people I've talked to and interviewed in my life, this has truly been one of the most fascinating, intriguing, and really interesting interviews I've ever done in my life. Mrs. Vanderlip is an icon and a legend in her own lifetime, and the things we've seen and done are absolutely one of a kind. Until we meet again, this is John Clayton saying from the Vanderlip Mansion, happy travels.